Exposed. The incredible moment. A beggar boy offers a millionaire hope. Can his daughter walk again? Michael stood on the weathered corner, heart racing as he scanned the sidewalk cluttered with broken bottles and discarded dreams. A whirlwind of shame swept through him. It was just a muted exchange of small change today. He could hardly look into the eyes of each passerby, knowing he was reduced to a ghost of the man he once was, a skilled mechanic with dreams brighter than the sun. The greyed walls of their cramped apartment were plastered with Sarah's crayon drawings, a surreal reminder of the life he was fighting to hold on to. Could he muster the courage to speak about his dreams again? To open up about the car designs he once envisioned gliding across streets? But every time he shared those dreams, he felt the sting of reality cut deeper. Sarah was trapped, caught in a body she desperately wanted to escape. And all he could offer her was hope, something that flickered like a dying ember in the middle of a storm. Hesitating, he could see the polished shoes striding past. Wealth and desperation collided at this very corner. That's when he met Raymond, the businessman with tailored suits and unkempt grief in his eyes. For a moment it felt surreal. The contrast was jarring. Raymond's world of power, races, and opportunities seemed like a distant planet in a universe where Michael was stuck on the barren land of survival. "Hey, you good?" Raymond asked, breaking the silence. The question echoed painfully. Michael found himself drawn to the man's vulnerability, his own struggles reflecting on Raymond's features. Could someone so wealthy truly understand? "Just looking for some work. Anything," Michael replied, his voice low as he suppressed a wave of despair. Raymond, arms crossed, shared how his daughter Lily had lost her spirit, a hollow shell since her accident. Michael felt a spark of connection, a joint recognition of their pain. Here was a man who understood the anguish of watching their child slip away. "Let's grab a coffee," Raymond offered, his eyes searching for a flicker of solace, and Michael found himself nodding, trusting this stranger with the fragments of his heart. As they settled in at a dingy diner, coffee steaming between them, Michael shared tales of Sarah's laughter, her joy imbued in the air of their cramped space. Raymond listened. A quiet ache settled in his throat as he revealed his inability to reach Lily against the cold walls of her despair. Before they could dissect the pain any further, Raymond's attention shifted. "What did you want to do before all this?" The question pressed hard, opening wounds long sealed. Michael's throat tightened. Doubt clawed at him. Did he dare speak of his dreams, those visions of creation that were now ghosts? "Design," he whispered. "I wanted to create vehicles that could transform lives." Raymond's eyes gleamed with an idea that could change the game. What if we collaborated on something for our daughters, something that could help them? Before Michael could process the gravity of this proposition, an unsettling fear wrapped itself around him. Could he really come back from the shadows, reforge his identity? Society may have labeled him less than, but were his dreams still alive? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tension filled the air as Michael fought with himself, every pulse of self-doubt clawing at his insides. Could he step back into his former glory? He wanted to seize this chance, but feared it slipped through his fingers like sand. As they stood on the verge of possibility, fate lingered just out of reach, a looming question hanging heavily between them. Would he allow hope to drown beneath the weight of fear? Michael's heart thudded in his chest as he stared blindly into the swirling coffee. the aroma mixing with the weight of his fears. Raymond's question hung above them like a thundercloud. The urge to retreat to his shell, to wrap himself in the familiar blanket of despair, nearly overwhelmed him, but somewhere deep down, a flicker of something stirred. Was it hope? He wrestled with the vision of his old self, standing in the garage, grease-stained hands shaping metal into something extraordinary. Those days felt like echoes of a long-forgotten dream. But maybe it wasn't too late to reach out and grasp that dream again. After all, hadn't he just dared to share it with a stranger? Design. I wanted to create vehicles that could transform lives, he repeated, more assured now. His pulse quickened as his mind awakened to new possibilities. Was there potential in joining forces with Raymond, or was it a foolish pursuit? Raymond leaned in, intensity igniting in his gaze. Why not start with adaptive vehicles? Something tailored for Lily's needs, something life-changing. The suggestion struck like lightning, jolting Michael's imagination. What if he could design something unique that would not just serve Sarah, but countless others like her? Could he take this chance to not only re-establish his sense of self, but perhaps become a voice for those hidden away in silence? What would it take? Michael ventured cautiously. Raymond didn't hesitate. Your experience, my connections, and some investment. We could begin with sketches, and then prototype. An anxious thrill coursed through Michael. The thought of creating again, of having a purpose beyond survival, began to eclipse the weight of his past. Yet fear and doubt sat like a heavy stone in his stomach. Could he really leave behind the shadows that had clung to him for so long? I haven't done anything like this in years. What if I fail? He stared into the depths of the coffee cup, struggling against the fears clawing at his resolve. Every successful venture begins with risk, Raymond reminded him. But this isn't just about getting back on your feet. It's about making a difference. Michael hesitated, caught between the safety of doubt and the daring of ambition. He thought of Sarah and her laughter, her dreams submerged in darkness. What if he could reignite the joy she once knew? The notion swirled in his mind, gaining momentum as he silently battled the naysayer inside. Okay, he said slowly, yet resolutely. I'm in. For a moment, a rush of adrenaline surged through him, a blend of exhilaration and fear. In that instant, he allowed himself to believe that change was possible. The plans, the sketches, the designs, they all flooded back. Without even realizing it, he had started to step away from despair. But just as the pulse of possibility soared, a pang of unworthiness tugged at him. What if his past failures haunted him, overshadowing his renewed spirit? As they leaned over sketches at the diner table, a scarred memory whispered in his ear, threatening to derail him. What if he was truly incapable of transforming this new venture into success? Raymond seemed to sense his hesitation. You've got this, Michael. Just remember, it's not about perfection. It's about pushing through barriers. Determination cast its glow, yet skepticism lurked in the background. As they planned the first steps of their collaboration, Michael noticed the weight of doubt beginning to shift. In that moment, he caught a glimpse of who he could become. But the path ahead was fraught with challenges, intricately woven with pitfalls and shadows. He left the diner feeling lit with cautious optimism, yet an echo of self-doubt lingered. What if the darkness called back to him? Would he have the strength to resist? That evening, as he reached their front door, something stirred within. The drawing Sarah had made of a rocket ship surged into focus. It reminded him of the vastness of possibility. But in the quiet confines of their home lay a startling realization. Sarah wouldn't wait forever for him to rise. Would he be able to lift them both from the edge of despair? Just then, his phone buzzed, revealing a message from Raymond with the tentative plans for their first meeting. Michael's stomach tightened at the thought of taking this leap. Could he face the unknown without looking back? The moment felt pregnant with possibility, but the hesitation loomed large. As he sat in stillness, Michael pondered what the next days would demand of him. The moment of truth was on the horizon, and he couldn't shake the certainty that it would redefine everything he believed about himself. Would the choices he made next bring redemption or pull him further into despair? The morning sun streamed through the half-closed curtains, illuminating the dust motes that danced in the air. Michael had hardly slept, his mind racing with the implications of his agreement with Raymond. What had he gotten himself into? The weight of anticipation bore down on him as he faced the day ahead. This was more than just a professional endeavor. It was a chance to reclaim his identity. He picked up a pencil and sketched absently on a notepad, capturing the lines of a vehicle he could only dream about. Adaptive features flooded his consciousness, ramps, control systems, and innovative seating arrangements that could embrace not only Sarah, but many others. He felt every stroke of the pencil breathe life into dormant dreams, transforming his worries into actionable blueprints. The thrill swelled within him, battling against the steady pulse of self-doubt that lingered in the background. As Michael prepared for his meeting with Raymond, he practiced his pitch, repeatedly vocalizing the ideas swirling in his head. Designing with purpose to impact lives, this is not just business, it's a mission. He ran through the specifics. A vehicle that morphed to meet individual needs, a creation that could uplift the marginalized who had long been overlooked. Stepping into the familiar cafe where they had discussed their plans, he spotted Raymond tucked into a corner booth, hunched over sketches of his own. The sight of his partner brought a rush of adrenaline, excitement tempered with anxiety. "Morning, Michael." Raymond looked up, an encouraging smile breaking through the early hour. The easy camaraderie instilled confidence, but as they exchanged pleasantries, an unexpected wave of intimidation washed over Michael. "What if my designs don't meet expectations?" The question slipped out before he could rein it in. His mind flicked to an instance years ago when a client had rejected his work. That moment had shattered him, leaving scars and a fear that still whispered in his ear. Raymond glanced up, brow furrowed. "This is a new beginning. No one's judging your past here." There was something authentic in his gaze that stilled the clamor in Michael's head, if only momentarily. They dove into their brainstorming session, sketches sprawling across the table like soldiers ready for a battle. Ideas flowed between them, growing more ambitious with each proposal. They discussed not only mechanics, but aesthetics, how to design a vehicle that invited hope. The very thought ignited something deep within Michael, a fire that had been dormant for far too long. However, the specter of his past failure remained. As they collaborated, Michael found himself suppressing nervous tics, fingertips drumming against the table, a tapping foot, symbols of his unease. Each stroke of the pencil bore the weight of expectation, not just from Raymond, but from himself. He was not merely reinventing a design, he was reinventing the man he thought he had lost. "What drives you?" Raymond asked suddenly, his focus unwavering. "What's at the heart of this?" Michael hesitated. It was easy to rattle off lofty statements about helping others, but the truth sat heavier. "I'm terrified of failing again, but—" He took a deep breath, feeling the air fill his lungs. "It's not just about me anymore. It's about Sarah. It's about people who have been overlooked. They deserve to be seen. I have to do better." As the words came tumbling out, a sense of liberation washed over him. This wasn't solely about achieving a professional milestone. It was about crafting a purpose that resonated at a core level. Through vulnerability came clarity, banishing the lingering shadows that haunted him. Time slipped by in a haze of sketches and ideas until the cafe bustled with the lunch crowd. Their brainstorm shifted towards execution, focusing on logistics and next steps. But as they laid plans, a new tension arose within Michael, the challenge of translating this burst of creativity into a tangible outcome. After their meeting, Michael left feeling bolstered, yet aware of the road ahead. He was fueled by possibility, but confronted with the daunting task of bridging dreams and reality. When he returned home, he found Sarah doodling on a scrap paper, her pencil flying across the page. He sat beside her, noticing the joy reflected in her artwork, and felt an urgent need to harness that spirit into their project. "Hey, what do you think about designing something incredible together?" he asked, enthusiasm bubbling. She looked up, eyes bright with interest. As they mapped out a vehicle to accompany her dream, a sudden realization settled in Michael's mind. This venture wouldn't just save him, it could redefine what hope meant to them both. Yet, as night descended, doubt tiptoed back into his mind. Would he truly be able to execute this vision? His phone buzzed, a notification illuminating in the dim light. It was a message from Raymond. "Should we set up a meeting next week with potential investors? Let's get this moving." Michael's heart sank as the reality set in. The moment of truth was closer than he thought, and now doubt had a tangible face. As he stared into the darkness beyond the window, Michael bowed his head, battling the strong currents of uncertainty one last time. Would he manage to turn possibility into reality, or would he crumble when it mattered most? The next morning felt different, electric with the promise of change. Michael awoke early, heart racing at the thought of the meeting with investors looming just days away. Determined to face this new reality, he forced himself not to wallow in fear, but to channel that anxiety into productivity. He grabbed a notebook, the one filled with sketches, ideas and dreams, and got to work. Sitting at the dining table, he pored over his earlier sketches, each vehicle concept sparking new ideas. He envisioned eco-friendly materials, intuitive controls that could be accessed by anyone, and modular designs that allowed for versatile seating arrangements. This wasn't just about mobility, it was about independence, dignity, and the power to choose. Each pencil stroke became a step further away from his past failures and closer to his dreams. Yet with every design he brought to life on paper, the weight of expectation hovered overhead. What if they couldn't secure the funding? What if the investors saw the designs and scoffed? Could he bear the echo of rejection again? He pushed the spiraling thoughts aside and focused instead on what mattered most: real people. He imagined Sarah, not just as his daughter, but as a catalyst for change, the embodiment of every reason he was doing this. The hours slipped away until the sun reached its zenith, illuminating the kitchen in a warm glow. He took a break, stepping outside for fresh air. The briskness invigorated him, an internal reset. He gazed across the street to the local park where children played, parents chatting. For a moment he felt a pang of nostalgia, recollecting times with Sarah when she could run freely, unrestricted. This endeavor wasn't just a project, it was a lifeline. As the afternoon faded, he found himself lost in thought, his mind tethered to the future. What if this wasn't just about him facing his doubts, but stepping into a role beyond himself? He thought of the countless families that would benefit, the joy it would bring, the freedom it promised. That sustained him. It propelled him beyond his self-imposed limitations. Later, he met with Raymond at a co-working space, eager to share his renewed vision. The vibrancy of the space matched the energy bubbling within him. "I have something to show you," Michael said, excitement edging his voice. He laid out his newest sketches, showcasing what he believed would be revolutionary designs for accessibility. Raymond's eyes widened as he examined the blueprints. "This is incredible, Michael. You've taken it to a whole new level. Imagine what this could mean for so many people." But even as Raymond praised his work, A shadow crept back into Michael's mind. What if it wasn't incredible? What if it was just another iteration of failure? "Do you really think this could resonate with the investors?" Michael asked, his voice low. A faint tremor of vulnerability pierced through his bravado. "Absolutely," Raymond replied, conviction in his tone. "But we need to back it up with a strong presentation. You need to articulate not just what you're doing, but why it matters. This is not just a business plan, it's a movement." Their session turned into a spirited rehearsal. They strategized how to convey a compelling narrative, a vision that extended beyond financial gain to touch hearts and souls. As Michael practiced, building the emotional core of their pitch, the story began to take shape. It was no longer solely about design, it was about hope, community, and the right to mobility. But dread wormed its way back in. As they discussed potential questions investors might ask, Michael realized he didn't have all the answers. This was his moment to shine, yet fear whispered that it could all come crashing down. Each hypothetical scenario posed reminded him of how fragile their chance at success really was. As they finalized their pitch, a sense of urgency enveloped Michael. The stakes felt higher than ever, his very identity intertwined with this venture. Would this presentation be the turning point, or would it unravel into another chapter of disappointment? The next morning brought a rush of clarity as he delved into practice. Every word, every inflection became a tool. He found himself standing in front of the mirror, rehearsing not just what he would say, but the passion behind it. Just before he went to bed that night, he received another message from Raymond. "We need to have powerful visuals to enhance our presentation. Let's brainstorm tomorrow." Michael's heart raced again, anticipation mixing with anxiety. The moment was approaching, a culmination of failures, dreams, and hope. Would he rise to the occasion, transforming the fragile wave of uncertainty into a tide of unwavering belief? As he lay down, thoughts coursed through his mind, building the tension that would lead him into the unknown. What would the investors really think? Would they believe in him as much as he had begun to believe in himself? The morning sun filtered through the curtains as Michael awoke, the coolness of the room contrasting with the heat of his mounting anxiety. Today was no ordinary day. Today was pivotal. He had crafted his narrative, but now he had to deliver it with conviction, a feat he had only half accomplished in past presentations. As he made his way to the kitchen, Michael allowed himself a moment of reflection. He needed to break through his insecurities and emerge as the man who could mold dreams into reality. It was no longer just about the designs he poured his heart into. It was about challenging every limitation he had accepted as his own. He grabbed his notebook and flipped it open to a blank page, committing himself to write down the qualities he needed to embody: confidence, clarity, resilience, and hope. The act of writing felt different today, intentional, almost healing. Each word was a self-affirmation, a commitment to not only himself, but to Sarah and the countless others who relied on his vision. After a few moments, he closed the notebook. The weight of self-doubt momentarily lifted. Fueled by a fresh urgency, he went for a brisk jog to clear his mind. The rhythmic sound of his feet against the pavement was grounding, punctuating each moment of his charged thoughts. Did he truly believe in his design? Did he believe it could impact lives? As he ran, flashes of different families came to mind, transformations that could be triggered by his work. The resonance of purpose flooded his chest as he matched the speed of his heart, each beat a reminder of the risks worth taking. When he returned, the co-working space hummed with anticipation. Raymond was already there, reviews and suggestions pinned on the walls in a visual cacophony of ideas and feedback. "Let's get to it," Michael said, taking stock of his partner's energy. They set to work, refining the visuals that would accompany their presentation. Raymond paused, his brows furrowed with intensity. What's the strongest message we can convey? What will stick in their minds? Michael felt the familiar flutter of panic creep back in. What if they're not ready to embrace such a radical idea? Raymond leaned closer, locking eyes with him. But what you've created is not just a tool, it's a hope. You're selling not just a product, but a future. That comment struck Michael like a bolt of lightning, illuminating his clarity. He needed to convey not just the designs, but the revolution they represented. This was not merely a business opportunity, it was a chance to redefine mobility for those marginalized by their circumstances. The narrative shifted within him, and the fear of failure began to morph into an electrifying urgency. Hours melted into minutes as they dissected the presentation. Michael practiced delivering his story, ensuring it flowed with genuine emotion and purpose. He visualized standing before the investors and capturing their attention. Each word felt more potent, charged with the conviction of lives he hoped to uplift. But just when the rhythm settled into a hopeful cadence, a thought interrupted his focus. What if they couldn't articulate the human element? What if the sterile boardroom isolated his emotional investment? "Raymond," he said suddenly, "we need to incorporate a real-life story, something that individualizes our vision." Raymond nodded, understanding the potential resonance of personal narratives. "Use Sarah's journey as a cornerstone. It's her story that can evoke empathy." Michael's chest tightened, the image of his daughter juxtaposed with his ambition, presenting a moral dilemma. Could he bear her struggles in front of strangers, laying their relationship bare to fuel his drive? He inhaled deeply, grounding himself. As their brainstorming session wrapped up, Michael realized this story could be the catalyst for change, the raw, unrefined truth of their endeavor. The clock ticked ominously toward the meeting, each second amplifying the stakes. Would they see through the veil of numbers to understand the beating heart of this venture? As exhaustion seeped into his bones, Michael realized he was standing on the precipice of something monumental. The moment of truth loomed ahead. Could he summon the courage to not just represent his project, but share a part of himself entwined with it? He braced himself, anticipation surging within him. The investors awaited. Their judgment could shatter dreams or build bridges to the unimaginable. The time had come to face the truth, not just about the vehicles he had designed, but about the man he was becoming. Would he allow his vulnerabilities to spark the connection needed to inspire change, or would hesitation cement his past failures once and for all? The boardroom loomed ahead like an ominous fortress, its stark walls a reminder of the stakes. Michael took a deep breath, steadying himself as he stepped inside. Every person seated there represented an opportunity to leap forward, or a potential pitfall that could doom his aspirations. The air crackled with tension, a blend of expectation and skepticism hanging palpably. "Good morning," he began, his voice steady but underscored by a tremor of vulnerability. The polished table reflected their expressions: curiosity, impatience, and a flicker of disbelief. He felt the familiar heat of anxiety rise in his chest, but pushed it down, calling upon the resolve he forged during his morning reflections. He launched into the presentation, words flowing with a newfound authority. Each slide shifted past, showcasing the sleek designs, the meticulously calculated data, and the market projections. But Michael was acutely aware of the superficiality that could ensue. Data alone wasn't going to connect with these investors. Their tears of empathy were essential for igniting a fire beneath the surface of cold analytics. Then came the moment he had rehearsed over and over, the transition to Sarah's story. "This design is more than just a product," he declared, his heart racing. "It embodies the dream of a young girl, my daughter, who hasn't walked unaided since an accident 2 years ago. With this vehicle, she sees the world differently, a world not defined by her limitations, but by the possibilities ahead." His voice softened, drawing them in. For a moment, he could almost envision Sarah in that space, her bright smile capable of cutting through the barriers that tethered her. He offered glimpses of her experience, the frustration, the small victories, the day-to-day struggles couched in hope. These pieces of authenticity breathed life into the cold statistics, transforming a mere product into a beacon of hope and resilience. As Michael spoke, he watched the investors lean forward, their expressions shifting from skepticism to curiosity, and perhaps a budding empathy. Yet a voice in his mind questioned whether it was enough. Would they ever understand the depth of this narrative? "Can you assure us," one investor interrupted, brows knitted in concentration, "that the emotional angle won't overshadow the practicality of these designs? People need assurance that they work, not just a moving story." Michael's heart dropped. Here was the confrontation he had dreaded. "What I can assure you," he countered, drawing on every ounce of conviction, "is that the very essence of this design is rooted in a real-life example. Sarah's needs were the backdrop for every decision made during the design process. The functionality is built upon the trials she faced daily, making sure this product is not just usable, but truly life-changing." The investor's gaze remained skeptical, yet he continued to speak, now more impassioned. "What holds weight is not just how well a product performs, it's how it makes someone feel. Sarah's journey fuels my commitment to this cause. Her story is the proof that this works, and it has the potential to change lives." The silence following his words felt tangible, an invisible thread binding the room. He hoped they would feel the weight of his vulnerability, the earnestness behind his ambition. Yet the oscillation between hope and fear gnawed at him. He was exposing not just a business plan, but a piece of his very soul, a gamble that could either shatter him or elevate him. Suddenly, the lead investor spoke again, a hint of intrigue dancing in his tone. "What would this mean for Sarah? How does she fit into the future you envision?" As Michael contemplated his answer, the trajectory of his journey spiraled simultaneously toward the potential heights and terrifying depths of the unknown. Would he dare to embrace a future that intertwined his personal and professional lives further than ever before? "Sarah exemplifies every reason for this mission," he replied, realizing that this moment held the pivotal revelation he needed. It was time to redefine not just his company, but his very identity. With that final thought hanging in the air, he knew the imminent decision ahead could shift everything. Would he have the courage to embrace what lay beyond the safety of structure and strategy? Michael's heart thrummed in his chest, each beat underscoring the life-altering decision that loomed just beyond the horizon. The investor's question had unlatched something dormant within him. He felt a rush of thoughts, a decisive clarity cutting through the fog of uncertainty. It was no longer just about the product or the personal connection. It was about creating a legacy, a bridge between his failures and Sarah's potential future. Moments passed, each second fraught with unspoken implications. With every piercing gaze on him, Michael visualized the stakes shifting. He could either cling to the business facade, focusing solely on the revenue projections, or he could elevate his mission, intertwining it with the raw authenticity of his daughter's enduring spirit. The weight of that choice pressed down heavily, yet it also ignited an unexpected flame of determination. The silence in the boardroom was punctuated only by the creaking of executive chairs, and he felt compelled to fill it. "What if I told you this isn't just about a product, but about what it means to live beyond expectations?" His voice was steadier now, brimming with purpose. "Imagine crafting not just a solution, but a movement that drives change, not only in the lives of others, but also within ourselves." His words echoed, reverberating against the walls that not only enclosed the participants, but also encapsulated the vulnerability of a father's devotion juxtaposed with the fervor to build a future. Scatterings of nods began appearing among the investors, tiny shifts toward possibility. Was this what he needed? To merge his personal story with a professional mission so deeply that neither could exist without the other. "Does that mean your vision includes Sarah directly?" another investor interjected, a wisp of concern crossing his eyes. "Are you planning to incorporate her into the company beyond just a mission statement?" The question struck deeper than Michael expected, exposing the raw truth he had been skirting. For so long, he compartmentalized his life, keeping the chaos of personal sorrow and professional ambition neatly separated. But as he stood in front of his potential future partners, an unsettling realization settled over him. Embracing the whole of his identity was not a liability, but a strength. "Yes," he breathed, capturing the attention of the entire room. "I want Sarah to be part of this journey. As we evolve, I want her experiences, her voice, to resonate through our designs, influencing every decision. She is my greatest challenge and my most profound inspiration. If we can create something that directly reflects her journey, then we're not just designing a product, we're architecting hope itself." Feeling a surge of adrenaline, he imagined Sarah waving her arms, empowered by the very machine birthed from her struggles. The vision was intoxicating, and with it came a cascade of responsibility. Would the investors support this approach, or would they retreat, fearing it lacked the conventional measurements of success? As he watched their faces, he saw intrigue overcoming skepticism. He was challenged, facing what felt like a tidal wave of conflict within the professional realm, while simultaneously constructing a pathway woven with vulnerability. "Michael," the lead investor finally responded, voice steadier than before, "if this is indeed about Sarah, we need to understand your metrics and your plans moving forward. What will it take to ensure you don't lose sight of practical realities?" His mind raced. As they delved deeper into the discussions, he realized addressing their concerns might prove equally challenging, yet rewarding. He needed a firm plan, not just aspirational, one that would anchor both Sarah's narrative and solid business strategies. Months passed with countless meetings, sketches, and revisions. The once hazy vision began crystallizing into tangible goals. His identity began to meld seamlessly with his professional aspirations, but somewhere in the back of his mind, shadows of doubt flickered. Was he still capable of seeking only practical victories without losing what ignited his fire in the first place? With a renewed commitment, he began dreaming larger than he had before, contemplating funding opportunities, partnerships, community tests, all intricately designed to root the company in authentic experiences. But as he stood on that precipice of growth, he questioned if he could balance the unexpected emotional stakes he was now tethered to. As the investors mulled over potential partnerships, Michael wondered if they would ultimately realize the gravity of emotional investment woven into the narrative. Would they grasp how the story of his daughter could redefine not just the company, but the very framework of the industry itself? His time in the boardroom ignited something profound. As he left, one question haunted him. Was he ready to juggle both the heart and the mechanics of business, knowing each clash could either birth creation or destruction? There was only one way to find out. The next day loomed, filled with pitch presentations and strategy discussions, yet a new dawn carried with it a quiet dread. The time had come to face the board's critical judgment on how heart and function could coexist. As dawn broke, Michael's mind buzzed with the fervor of possibility laced with anxiety. He sat at his desk, surrounded by countless sketches and projections that now held renewed meaning. This wasn't merely a business plan, it was a lifeline. Each line drawn represented dreams, struggles, and the unfathomable path his daughter had navigated. The room felt almost electric, charged with an ambiguous blend of trepidation and hope. The clock ticked audibly, a reminder of the tight schedule. Today was an opportunity to cement the bridge between creativity and commerce, and inch closer to realizing both his and Sarah's potential. With every minute that passed, he could feel the pressure building, but it also sharpened his focus. He mentally reviewed his strategy. Presenting Sarah's journey was vital, but did that narrative risk overshadowing the practical applications of their innovations? He needed to find that balance. Arriving at the office, he was met by the soft hum of conversation and the smell of fresh coffee. The air was thick with anticipation. Colleagues and investors gathered for the presentation. As he walked in, a wave of encouragement swept over him, but it was quickly followed by a gnawing idea that lurked in the corners of his thoughts. What if they dismissed the emotional aspects in favor of hard numbers? He took a deep breath, grounding himself in the mission he had set forth. The slides were polished, but it was the story, the heart behind the projections, that needed to resonate. Drawing strength from the visions he'd crafted for Sarah, he stepped into the room, heart pounding as he faced a panel of keen eyes. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steady, bolstered by intention. "Today we're not just discussing a product. We're unveiling a vision deeply connected to my daughter, Sarah." As he delved deeper, Michael wove a narrative that painted vivid images of resilience. Sarah wasn't just his daughter. She was a catalyst igniting a significant change in how people experience technology, rooted in empathy. He shared anecdotes of the late nights spent brainstorming designs alongside her, moments imbued with laughter and tears, all while the stakes of their shared aspirations hovered above them. Yet even as he spoke, uncertainty crawled under his skin. Would these seasoned investors appreciate the emotional weight of Sarah's story, or would they perceive it as a distraction from the metrics? He hoped to engage their empathy while simultaneously demonstrating the financial viability of the venture. As the presentation progressed, he noticed a few weary expressions. His heart dropped momentarily until he remembered the small victories, the looks of approval he'd seen in past meetings when he put his authentic self forward. Encouraged, he shifted the narrative to anchor Sarah's story alongside their potential impact on the market. "Consider this," he stated, leaning forward with conviction. "If our technology, informed by a deeply personal journey, can create better outcomes in rehabilitation, real, measurable outcomes, what greater drive do we need than the stories of those we aim to help? This isn't just emotional fluff, it's a roadmap derived from lived experience, one that connects with the very essence of human resilience." He concluded with a compelling graphic that displayed projected growth alongside testimony from early users, many of whom were families navigating similar struggles. When he finished, the room was engulfed in silence. A few investors murmured amongst themselves, clearly moved, yet Michael couldn't shake the tension coiling within him. Then the lead investor raised a hand, interrupting the quiet contemplation. "You've incorporated a compelling narrative, Michael, but we need more than stories. We need verification. How do we ensure this idea retains its authenticity while also becoming profitable?" The question hit like a cold wave, making him question his previous assumptions. The line was sharper than he had anticipated, and the risk of misconceptions loomed before him. Michael realized that he could embrace this challenge. Awareness of both emotional and practical considerations could propel the company to unprecedented success. "I understand," he replied, meeting the investor's gaze directly. "We can initiate focus groups that integrate feedback loops with our development, allow voices like Sarah's and the families we aim to serve to drive decisions while measuring growth comprehensively." The conversation ignited, and he felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. With newfound determination, he sharpened his focus, recognizing that he was not just selling a product. He was advocating for a paradigm shift in how they approach technology's role in healing. However, as the meeting pushed forward, a nagging question resurfaced within him. Would he manage to maintain that genuine balance, or would he lose the very essence of what had fueled this journey? Today had only just begun, and with every discussion he grasped the undeniable truth. There was no turning back now. Just as a moment of solidarity began to settle in the room, another voice piped up with a challenge he hadn't anticipated. But Michael, at the end of the day, is this truly a sustainable approach? Can one emotional story be enough to steer a business forward, especially when facing larger competitors? The ground beneath him shifted, and Michael realized it was time for the deepest confrontation yet. The very values he had built this venture upon would soon face the ultimate test. Michael's breath hitched as he processed the unexpected challenge. The room dimmed around him. All focus turned to the voice that had just punctured the narrative he had so carefully constructed. "Is one emotional story enough?" echoed in his mind, drowning out the murmurs of doubt from the investors. This wasn't merely a question. It struck him as an accusation, a challenge to his deepest convictions. "Isn't that what every successful venture is built on?" he found himself asking before he had the chance to dismiss the impulse. "A story that resonates, a motivation that drives?" The urgency in his voice startled him. He had just placed himself firmly on the stage. The lead investor leaned back, arms crossed, intrigue replacing skepticism. "Your daughter's story is powerful, Michael, but investors are interested in scalability, longevity. Your emotional connection doesn't insulate against competition. We need to know how this foundation will hold up when the tide rises." Each word reinforced the weight on his shoulders. It wasn't just a matter of advocacy or sharing moments of bonding with Sarah anymore. It was about tackling hard truths. "I accept that I need to present a plan that holds," he stated, his determination crystallizing. "Perhaps we can develop workshops where families contribute feedback to refine our product while simultaneously collecting data to prove its effectiveness across a broader user base. The insights from real experiences would inform our growth strategy while keeping our core mission intact." Nods began to travel through the panel, but Michael knew that hope alone would not convince them. As the conversation swelled with possibilities, he realized the clock was ticking ever closer to the moment when he needed to cast off the comfort of his daughter's story and embrace his role as a leader. The fear of facing the unknown gripped him. Around the table, discussions evolved from the initial skepticism, but Michael sensed an undercurrent of doubt still running deep. Did those gathered still fail to see the full potential he believed they held? Each time he presented an idea rooted in authenticity, he felt the shadow of the question looming. Was his conviction enough to place them amongst the heavyweights of the industry? "I admire your passion, but do you think your deep emotional ties will be perceived as a distraction in a market driven by performance?" The voice came again, this time from a different investor, a warning hidden beneath the surface of curiosity. Michael clenched his fists beneath the table, respect mingling with annoyance. Yes, he understood their concerns. They were valid. Yet beneath every question that prodded at his resolve lay layers of stubborn belief. He needed to pivot, to recalibrate his narrative without letting go of the authentic essence of their mission. "Look," Michael shifted his strategy mid-sentence, "I'm not asking for blind faith. I understand growth must be backed by figures and factual results. What I'm proposing is a strategy that harnesses our profound story to elevate our credibility. We can share quantitative data without severing the emotional connection." He was taking a risk, stepping onto increasingly shaky ground, aware that the further out he walked, the harder the fall could be. The questions continued to flow, forces of doubt battering against his aspirations. Yet, amid the storm of discourse, confidence surged within him. He wasn't just advocating for a product, he was fighting for a future where empathy and innovation could coexist. After what felt like an eternity of deliberation, silence enveloped the room again. The investors paused, digesting his recalibrated vision. The energy had shifted subtly. Curiosity now crackled in response to his invitation to explore the bridge between personal and professional worlds. But even as new ideas flowed, another voice rose, a whisper of dissent mixed with trepidation. What if, Michael, it's not enough? What if this blending of personal story and business doesn't yield the results? You may find yourself caught between two worlds, struggling to define your path. Caught in a tidal wave of doubt and determination, Michael couldn't shake the thought. Could he craft a robust business out of a vulnerable truth? Would he wrestle with the emotional and economic tensions, or would he falter, swaying on the precipice of failure? In the midst of it all, the incessant tick of the clock soothed and disquieted him at once. He realized it was time to reach deeper, not just for the story he had fought to shape, but to unearth something more resilient. The challenge before him was clear, and so too was the potential for growth, both for his work and for himself. Yet as the conversation continued, the question lingered. Could he maintain his authenticity while navigating the corporate labyrinth ahead? The next moment could make or break everything. The real test awaited, and internal unease simmered as he braced himself to step into that uncharted territory, not just for the project, but truly for his daughter. Could his vision sustain the pounding waves of criticism and skepticism, or was he at risk of being swept away into an abyss of corporate pragmatism? Michael emerged from the boardroom, breathless yet invigorated. The pitch had been a battleground of emotions and expectations, stirring doubts he thought he had buried. But as he stepped into the hall, a realization dawned on him. He had transcended fear to boldly declare his identity, entwining his family's story with innovative ambition. That shift within himself was monumental. Weeks turned into months, and the venture blossomed. With each iteration of the adaptive vehicles, Michael witnessed his designs grow more sophisticated and more aligned with the mission of empowering individuals with mobility challenges. They had secured investment. The company's legitimacy had taken root, spurred by the emotional narrative intertwined with its functionality. It was exhilarating yet exhausting. As Michael oversaw the first prototype rolling off the assembly line, he felt displaced from the person who had once stood on that bustling corner, bereft of direction. Now he was a leader, galvanizing a team focused on sharing a vision. The designs transcended beyond mere vehicles. They became symbols of possibility. "Look at her, Dad." Sarah's voice pierced through his reflections as she approached the vehicle, with its sleek lines and adaptive features specifically designed for her needs. Her face beamed as she explored the features, a sense of freedom radiating from her smile. It illustrated what he had always strived for, the transformation of her limitations from a burden into an opportunity for hope. This moment was far from the shadows of despair. It was imbued with the clarity of purpose and newfound confidence he'd caringly developed. Sarah flitted around, testing the controls, and Michael marveled at the way laughter filled the air once again, contagious and light, as if dispelling the darkness that had once consumed both of them. He was not merely offering her hope now, he was actively designing her freedom. The first test run was more than a demonstration of the vehicle's capabilities. It was a milestone, a showcase of resilience and innovation. As they embarked down the neighborhood street, Sarah's laughter echoed through the open windows, fueling the passion ignited within Michael. The design had come to represent more than efficiency. It had morphed into a tribute of evolution birthed from trials, failures, and endless hope. Days turned to weeks, and he began sharing not just the external successes, but also internal victories with his team. He encouraged them to embrace the emotional pillars of their work, celebrating moments that intertwined personal stories with professional growth. As they prepared for a community outreach event, an opportunity to demonstrate the vehicle's capabilities and share stories from those it would empower, Michael found himself meticulously reviewing his speech. It needed to encapsulate the journey and distill the very essence of why their work mattered. Standing on the stage, first under the sun and then under the stage lights, He recounted the resilience of families he had met throughout this journey. Together, we are creating a wave of change, not because it's easy, but because we recognize that hope is the most powerful engine. He could feel energy surging through the audience as his voice resonated with sincerity and conviction. Their feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Every heartfelt connection established in that moment was a testament to the diversity and potential embodied within their innovation. Investors no longer gravitated toward profits alone. They believed in the mission, inspired by the storm of empathy he had ignited. Michael's transformation was palpable. He now stood confidently in his abilities, an innovator driven by purpose rather than fear. He embraced every role, not as a means to avoid failure, but as an opportunity to inspire others rooted in personal experience. Months later, as he and Sarah viewed the line of vehicles ready for community rollout, Michael understood one undeniable truth. He had achieved not just a personal victory, but an organizational revolution. The work matched the heart's intentions, each vehicle telling the stories etched in resilience. Michael smiled. Knowing this journey was a testament to everything he had fought for all those months, he was not just a father, a designer. He was a beacon for families navigating the complexities of mobility challenges. He had forged a path that recognized each individual's journey mattered, transforming despair into newfound hope, the ultimate personal achievement. The road may have been rugged, but Michael had seen the other side. He had conquered more than professional milestones. He found fulfillment in embracing his identity, exuding the solid confidence that comes from acknowledging vulnerability. To anyone out there who yearns to overcome their challenges, don't wait. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. This is the moment to show your support for Journeys of Transformation. Comment with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share the power of stories that redefine success.